If you don't get your priorities straight, you're riding on a merry-go-round of stupidity. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. And you know, one of the things that we talk about as leaders is that when you have a project that you're moving forward, you always want to make sure that the results that you're getting along the way are measurable. And this is true in virtually all cases. Sometimes, however, because your priorities are not in the right order, your project will come to a grinding halt and you find yourself back at ground zero. You know, one of the people that I admire tremendously, and I know many people do, because when you say the word Einstein, that's like, oh, this guy's an Einstein, this guy's a genius, is I like to look back at some of the things that Einstein said and put them in the present context. And one of the things that Einstein said is, we live in a world where we want everything to be measurable. He goes on to say, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that you can count counts. So how am I putting this in the present perspective? Well, as was predicted on this channel a month ago, more than a month ago, that we're going to have another major spike in the coronavirus pandemic. It looks like we've arrived. Why? Well, people went out there, Memorial Day, people going out there and protesting, which I certainly understand. And then there's also the other people that are just saying, the heck with it, I'm going out there, I'm doing what I normally do, I'm not recognizing that we're in a unique situation. And what's happening is, of course, the virus, which doesn't take any days off, doesn't take any vacations, has said, oh boy, here's a chance for me to grow. And has certainly taken advantage of that chance. So what merry-go-round am I talking about? Well, you know, before we can solve the issue of an economy that's going south big time, the first thing that we have to solve is this health issue. Because as long as we have this health issue, we are going to be facing an economy that is going to be out of control and not in the right direction. Kind of simple, isn't it? The priority has got to be, we've got to solve these health issues first, and then we're going to be able to go and pursue the economic issues. We're seeing it again. One of the things, you know, that this president said, and he wasn't the first one to say it, he was, okay, it was, if you ignore history, you are doomed to repeat it. How does that make sense in the present context? Well, it's now been, I don't know, a couple of months or so, a month or so at least, since we've reopened America. And how prepared are we? Does everybody have masks? Well, for the most part, people do have masks. All right. Do we have the ventilators? For the most part, the ventilators are there. But we're still seeing all of this, seeing the numbers spike up. Where is the testing? How do we know? Now, a couple of days ago, three days ago, so I wasn't feeling very good. And so, and especially in today's times when you're not feeling very well and you start to get some body aches and pains, you say, uh-oh, this could be it. So I went on the internet, and you know, to my state where they would talk about testing, I found out where the testing was, and they had a little thing to fill out, should you go and be tested? So I answered the questions, and the answer was, no, you don't need to go and be tested. And that was somewhat of a relief to some extent, and fortunately feeling much better now, getting closer to 100%. So I feel like I had a virus, but I didn't have the virus. The point is, we are in a very precarious situation in this country. We're watching the numbers spike. What's measurable is not going in the right direction. Yet at the same time, we're opening things up more and more and more and more. And I recognize the economic hardships that people are facing, but you can't go out and be earning a living if you're not healthy. And we're putting ourselves in the position by not being prepared, by not having the testing that we needed to, and I hear that like, oh, we've increased it, 100%, so on and so forth. We're not even close to what we need to be. Now, you can't blame the previous administration for leaving the cupboard bare. We've gone through this scenario once, and you've chosen to ignore the symptoms, and then now we're going to run into the same scenario, the New York City type scenario across the country. We're seeing in Arizona as an example, in North and South Carolina, for example. And at the same time, you're having a mass, rally and these conventions, and where people are just going to be congregating. What do you think is going to happen? You've seen it happen. And it's bad enough when it's unorganized and people are going to the beach and they're getting in close contact, or it's somewhat unorganized and people are going to demonstrations. They're inspired and they go, and it wasn't something that like they planned 2 months ago. Oh, you know what, I'm going to go to a demonstration today. They were inspired to go. It's something, when something is unorganized and stuff happens, that's one thing. But when you're organizing a scenario where people are going to catch the virus, what is that saying? We're not prepared with our testing. We don't have the things in place to curtail this scenario, and we're continuously moving forward in spite of that fact. And the economy will never get back to anywhere near normal until we're able to solve this particular issue first. Now, do the powers that be, the president, does he realize that, hey, that there's that it's dangerous? He's making people sign a waiver that are attending the rally. He's making people sign waivers that are going to attend the convention. That like, hey, if you get the coronavirus, don't blame me, don't sue me, it ain't my fault. What? Explain this to me. You recognize that you're putting people at risk. You don't want to be sued. You want to be protected, but you don't care if they're protected. We're in a scenario where there's extraordinary circumstances that have to be adhered to. We're not doing that. And as a result, if you ignore history, you are doomed to repeat it. We're seeing the same things happen over and over and over again, and this time it'll be worse and worse. I'm trying to understand the logic behind this. And the person that's the leader is the one that sets the pace, and we're setting the wrong pace. And I recognize that there are people like my son Eli, who is 15 going on 16, that just itching to get out there and do things. Everybody's itching to get out there and do things. But when you're sick, when you have, when you have a heart attack, you can't still go out there and do it. You have to go to the hospital. You have to take your medicine. We're in the position where we have to take our medicine, and we're not taking it, and we're not cognizant of it. It's like somebody that's dying of lung cancer saying, hey, go out and get me a carton of cigarettes, will you? That's what we're doing. Don't people see this? Don't our leaders see this? So let's get our priorities in order. Let's get our perspective on target where it should be. let's recognize that before we have any sort of an economic recovery, that we're going to have to quell this health epidemic that is plaguing all of us. So we've got to pay attention to the details. And the details aren't that complicated. Wear a mask, wash your hands, keep your distance. Please. This is going to go on forever and ever and ever until we get a vaccine. And there's no guarantee that we will ever get a vaccine. That's hopeful thinking, and I hope it comes through, and probably it will, because we have so many minds working on it. But when is that going to happen? How long do we want this to drag out? There's evidence that countries that have practiced the necessary limitations, social distancing, masks, so on and so forth, have made some tremendous progress into getting closer to normalcy. We got to a certain point, we got satisfied and said, hey, what the heck, let's go out there and let's make it happen. It's too early to have that type of a mindset. You've got to have the mindset of, while you're sick, while there's disease out there, you have to protect yourself and others. So if you want to have a devil-may-care attitude and go out yourself, that's great, but please, let's not pass it along to other people. Let's show some respect for other people that want to do the right thing and want to get this health situation under control. I'm all for getting the economy back. We need to be more creative in how we can do that. Okay, but the first priority is the health of the nation, and we're watching it go belly up right now. The numbers are staggering what's happening, and at the same time that we're doing that, we're going to phase 4, we're going to phase 5, we're going to phase 10. All right? You can't go to phase 10 until you've solved the first issue satisfactorily. And because we will never end a meeting on a philosophical note, let's get our priorities straight. Let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.